Hi. Hi. Today's lecture is going to cover the data understanding part of the CRISP-DM. Okay, just to recap, what we've learned last class was on the CRISP-DM, which is the data analytics life cycle. So business understanding, once again, is when you identify the business problems. Okay, you ask questions of what exactly do we want to do, how exactly would we do it, and what parts of this use scenario constitute possible data mining models. After that, okay, there will be data understanding, whereby you identify the sort of data that is needed to solve the set problem. Okay, I've given one example of fraud detection, but of two differing cases. Okay, so here the point is that both are fraud. Okay, both are fraud, but fraud in financial institution, it is easier to detect compared to fraud in Medicare. All right, this is because of the data that can be used, okay, to identify the fraud. In case one, in financial institution, the data basically would be the card owner's a statement, bill statement, so you know where you can identify whether a transaction is a fraud or not a fraud. In case number two, however, it is a little bit more complicated. Okay, it's a bit tricky because fraud in Medicare, in this case, okay, is not as easy, since there is no check and balance. The data is only one-sided. Maybe in Malaysia this doesn't happen very often, but in UK it does happen, because in UK, getting advice from a GP or a general physician or a doctor is free. It is paid by the UK government. Patients need only to purchase or to have to pay for any prescription, medicine, etc. Right? So how does how does a GP survive? Basically, it will perform a claim. It will perform a claim to the UK government for the services that he or she has conducted on a patient. There is no way, there is no mechanism by which a customer has to validate the service. It is based on trust, and therefore sometimes some of the GPs, they are dishonest and they overclaim until millions, and yet they didn't do anything. There were no services being expanded. So therefore the data is kind of like there is a gap in the data, a gap or a missing data that is needed to identify a transaction or a service is fraudulent or legitimate. Okay, so in today's lesson, basically, you have been asked to read two papers. One is on customer intelligence and another one on supply chain. All right. This was taken from SaaS Global Forum in 2011. Okay. The main point here of this paper, even though maybe some people may think it is already dated, it is actually the point here is to identify, is to be able to understand your data based on a given or an identified business problem. Okay, so the business problem here is the business understanding here is customer intelligence. It is given to you. All right, so what you need to develop in this 14 weeks, okay, which is only 12 weeks lagi, okay, 12 more weeks, is that you need to retrain, or you need to change the way that you think, to start thinking about what the kinds of data that you can actually collect. Some of the data are not very obvious, some of the data are not yet known, and some which is also known as a dark data, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, and where you, as the CDO, the chief data officer, data analytics officer, or a senior data analyst should be able to propose its collection. Okay, so let's go through this article. All right. Okay, I'm sure that you have already read this through. All right. So we'll just do a discussion here of what are the important points that needs to be highlighted. So the business problem here is customer intelligence, which is to understand your customers better, because once you know your customer very well, you would be able to kind of like intercept intercept into his or her flow of purchasing or their decision making, right? How they decide, so you can kind of like inject or navigate them, okay, inject information that will kind of like, not really, we wouldn't say swerve them towards your product or your services, but to make them more informed of what you can offer, your product or your services can offer, and therefore they can make the best decision that they possibly could. Okay, so when we talk about customer intelligence, we cannot run away from something called 360. Okay, 360 of a business's customer is kind of like the epitome of customer intelligence, right? So there are some critical information, okay, that is within your organization, that used to be in an organization but has become more and more public, right? So such as web behavior, interactions through mobile applications or kiosks, okay, social media activity, and many more. So this used to be kind of like known as noise, right? Where people don't really care about collecting them, but in this big data era, these are gold. Maybe not literally, but they are gold, because they can help in giving insights into your customer and result in higher sales rate for you or your organization. Okay, the interesting point here is when you integrate web behavior data with all other relevant information you have about a customer. So when we talk about let me see if I can work this. Okay, when we talk about other information about other customers here, okay, this is referring to something called called OLTP, which is your current database, usually on relational database, okay, for structured data, right? So this is in other words, it is data that you already have being collected from ever since your organization was established, and then from time to time this information is being stored into your data warehouse. Okay, so what you're doing here is to combine new data with your existing data, yeah, to produce insight. So insight is really valuable. Okay, so when you're able to do this, okay, this combination or this marrying between these two kinds, the two groups of data, right, you are able to look into the individuals, the customer's intentions, purchase decision processes, and preferences. Okay, so if you don't know somebody, you won't be able to guess what he or she would like. You know, just like, for example, if you have a pet or a child, for example, you would be able to know his or her or its intention based on his or her or its behavior. Okay, and you can kind of like well, persuade them to make the another kind of decision. So what's important here basically, okay, is let me just clear this off. Okay, so the big question here is that how do you capture, assess, and utilize this rich information to drive insight? Yeah. Okay, how do you do that? This is really important. Okay, this is what you need to decide. Right? So you can actually use corporate web data, okay, and social media. What is happening right now is that we are having these two forms of data, yeah, to produce insight and to bump up, I call it, to bump up on customers 360. Yeah, so the first thing is that, okay, you need to ask the so-called question of what types of new data do you need to start gathering, and why such data types are important. These are burning questions, okay, important questions, right, that you needed to answer. Yeah, okay, and of course, what are the exact data points? Yeah, the exact data points. You see, it has to be very specific. You can't just say we're going to have customer data. We have to have specific data points. Customer data, what are the attributes, what are the properties, the age. Do you need information about the age, the address, the gender? Okay, what exactly do you need? And of course, not just simply use any, just say all demographic information. You don't need all demographic information, because you need to be able to know what that data can tell you. There could be in certain circumstances where you only need the gender as well as the location instead of the age. You may not need that. Okay, but there are certain situations where you need the age as well as the gender, and you don't need to have the location. Okay, alright, so you also need to be able to answer this question: how your analytics can be transformed through the integration of the new data. Because as I think I mentioned in the previous class, that when you are collecting such data, it could be that the data is already there. It does require some cost, and if in the case that it is not yet collected, you would require more cost. So you need to be able to know this for a fact, because it is very, very expensive. Yeah, okay, moving on. So what is this so-called 360? 360 is not easy to define. I mean, to measure exactly. It is easy to define. However, to measure it or to achieve it is really difficult. Okay, in a true 360 view, is that, okay, it implies that you truly know everything there is to know about your customer. Right? This is a problem basically, because there's always the privacy part of things. People do not like to feel that they are put under a microscope. I don't too. Because it could go to the extent of accessing CCTVs and taking a look or monitoring what a person actually do during the weekdays, during the weekends, the trails or the path that he or she took. like for example, okay, for example, your shop is here. Okay, this is your shop. You're selling flowers, like say. Okay, and then there is another shop here also selling flowers. And if let's say your customer is living somewhere here, this is a human being I'm trying to draw. Okay, and to the extent of 360, a true 360 would be to be able to track this person's path every morning, walking maybe down this street, or maybe walking down this street. Why not walking down your street and seeing your shop? Yeah. So this is in UK, this is kind of possible because they have CCTVs at every corner of the road. This is good for security, just in case somebody got kidnapped or somebody got killed, got stabbed. But at a daily basis of something like money making organizations, instead of security and safety, this is an intrusion to people's privacy. Okay, so a true 360 is just not possible unless the user or the customer wants or allows or permits themselves to be monitored. And this usually maybe happens in hospitals where people allow themselves to be monitored through something like a Fitbit like device, that's or a pacemaker for the heart, right? Okay, so here it shows that the finishing line of 360 is always moving, because as more technology is being introduced, more policies, more different environments and settings, things are going to change. Just like before, pre-FB, people don't even believe that they could actually share their age, their location, where they are at the moment. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't even think that that's possible. But things change, and people are allowing such sensitive information to be accessed or to be shared by many. All right. So because of these new things, because of this 360, and the more organizations are realizing how important it is to be able to know more about your customer. Okay, they created this basic thing called RFM, recency, frequency, and monetary value, okay, attached to each customer. Recency, frequency, and monetary value. Well, we know that there are people who are more wealthy, there are people with a different salary bracket, right? And some of them have more different behaviors. Some are more spendthrift than others. Well, okay, so they would like to know who would actually purchase something. They call it real customers, potential customers, instead of the ones that are just noise. Okay, so now virtually all businesses have started to collect and analyze the detailed transaction histories of their customers. Okay, this led to an explosion of analytical power and much deeper understanding of customer behavior, because once you're able to analyze, then you can understand, okay, you can actually start profiling your customers. There are people who would actually do very intense research even to just purchase an oven. Others would basically just okay, the first oven that they see, just get it and get it done with. Some people are more frugal. It's only because they don't earn as much. All right, some people just maybe gullible. Whatever the salesperson tells them, they will just buy it. So by understanding your customers, you are able to profile them, and when profiling occurs, it is easier for you to launch your campaign, targeted to that group of people. Okay. Okay, more, the level, okay, the how far 360 can go basically is being pushed to the limit, with technology, consumer interactivity, okay, and data architectures. These are really pushing 360 more and more closer to the customer. Okay, so here, this is basically what you need to be doing. Okay, collecting newly emerging detailed data about customers from a variety of extended and newly emerging touch points. Okay, what we have already will be web browsers, mobile applications, kiosks, social media. So you have to start thinking about others. What kind of other behaviors, other data that can be collected from the customer, be it overtly or covertly, explicitly or implicitly. Okay, this would mean, like, for example, their actions or their activities, their web activities. They don't know that they are being monitored. Explicitly is where you get their consent. Yeah. Okay. Okay, a good point here that this article is sharing is that just as transactional data enabled a revolution in the power and depth of analysis, so do these new data sources, enable taking analytics to a new level. The thing with analytics is that the more detail your data point is, the higher the analytics you can actually go. Okay, but the more detailed it is, when it comes to customers, it could be intruding their privacy. So you need to ask, okay, what are you missing? Is there anything that you're missing? Data that is floating here and there in your organization that's not being captured, that can actually, if once captured, can be very useful to your organization, can improve revenue, or to save on cost or expenditure, right? So in this particular case, it is showing that, okay, about 98% of the web sessions are gone. Okay, you are not capturing this organization is not capturing it. Okay, so this is the traditional data sources, and these are the online ones, right? So there's a lot of data being generated that's just not being captured because people don't see the value of it. So you, as the CDO, you need to be able to identify the data and then convert them into value. Okay, only then they will become, remember, your data asset, which is going to be very similar to having gold. Okay, so the theme nowadays, the popular method is to actually combine customer level web behavior data with other cross-channel customer data. Okay, right? So this is kind of a trend right now that most organization has already set out to do, or at the very least to to plan to actually set out to do. Okay, imagine the possibilities. Okay, what we want to do is imagine knowing everything about customers. Okay, what they do, what they go through the process. If you notice in Domino's, right, when you kind of like, there's a survey, and that survey talks about how do you rate from 1 to 10, and then when you put 10 because you want to get freebies like curly fries or something, they will ask you which part or which characteristics, or what are the things that you like about Domino's that cause you to give a 10. One of it is the ease of payment, the ease of for example, deciding on menu, so that is explicitly getting data from customers to tap into what are which characteristic or which feature is most important to people. Okay, is it the payment process? In other words, they are trying to identify the decision process of customers, as well as the pain points customers are facing. So by that tiny, but that one minute survey, they can actually get information, very valuable information like this. But sometimes I kind of like got tired of it. I don't give them, I just simply click whatever it is that came to my mind, or that was easy or convenient, because they keep on asking the same questions, and sometimes people get really hungry by the time that they finish ordering something. In other words, they do get kind of like bad data. Okay, so these are good questions. Okay, imagine you are a retailer. Okay, imagine that you are a retailer. Okay, right. Okay, so here imagine you're a retailer, imagine you're a bank, imagine you are an airline, imagine you're a telecom company. So the different organizations have different data that is needed for them, and it is indeed up to what's happened indeed up to the business rules and the domain itself as to what data that needs to be collected. Okay, so think about your organization. What kind of data would your organization benefit if you were to collect? And of course you need to have the commitment to collect. As I mentioned in previous class, most data that you have right now was designed or collected for MIS and not really for analytics. So your job now is to collect data for analytics. Okay. Okay, so this is what you're facing now is about new source of information. Okay, which is going to help in knowing about how people make their decisions, right? So, and also what are the buying processes that they undergo. You need to be able to answer questions like this. Why do customers choose one offering over another? Yeah, how do they make their choices? And once you know that, you are actually talking to them in a new way of communication. sometimes you meet two insurance agent, for example. One just doesn't seem to connect with you. They just don't so-called dig you, or how do you say that, doesn't understand you, you know. But the other one just simply understand you very well, because they kind of like know you and they can communicate better, right? So the takeaway message here basically is to marry or to combine new data with the existing one from your OLTP, okay, in order to achieve 360, okay, and to of course perform analytics. All right, what you need to do now is to finish off this what do you call article, and I want you to each create a video. Teacher, I want you to create a video and give an example of new data. Okay, example of new data. Describe an example of new data. Let me just clear this off. Okay, describe. Wait. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Describe. Describe. Okay. A domain. Right. Oops. A domain. Okay, describe a domain. Be it your work, okay, be it anything else that can benefit okay, from customer intelligence. Okay, the 360, yeah. Okay. What? Okay, 360. First of all, what data? What new data that can be collected? Yeah. And then what use they are for. Dot. Okay. How they can help in analytic customer intelligence. There you go. So create a 15 minutes. Is that long enough? If you, okay, let's say 10 to 15 minutes. Minutes. Great. Minutes. Okay, video, short video. Okay, and put it in a Google Drive. Classroom, okay, and send the link. So that's all for the customer intelligence article. Okay, we'll have another discussion after I've gone through your video. Okay, that's all. Assalamualaikum.